happy to be here. My name is Maria Sokolova. I am editor of the Journal of Social Criticism Commons. And today we have our last panel of our conference, which named The Dilemma of Democracy, Participation, and/or Procedure. So first of all, I will make some small introduction how this panel actually was created, where our inspiration for this panel. Actually, participation today is often associated with a different procedure on the different level. Like in Ukraine, we have these petition tools. Also, it's really popular now to have to maintain these surveys about problems and needs on local level. And even like everybody could propose their solutions for different law drafts. And in Ukraine, like what I see, we are even proud of how digitalized this participation has become. Paradoxically, now you can participate in political life without ever interacting with another person. And it's like for someone, it sounds really amazing, but for me, it's a bit strange way to do politics when you do not need to interact with anyone. You can just put the button, click the button, and like you are part of the decision at national level. And on the previous panels, we spoke a lot about participation, like kind of participation, like for example, participation in political life through the election processes. And now we see this participation is part of this far-right turn in Europe, for example. And in the environmental panel, we heard from our panelist call to action, like not to be passive when you witness some kind of injustice, do something. And it's really interesting how this dichotomy of active and passive actually works and is everywhere now. Like what I witnessed personally, is how people who engage in different kind of activism started to blame other people who are not active, who is like kind of a passive one. And it's really interesting to approach this dichotomy and try to understand could it help us to create like strong social movement or not? Maybe we need to deconstruct this dichotomy of their active and passive. And like now I will present our panelist. Our first panelist is Gigi Rogera. He is a militant researcher and the editorial director of the Italian independent publisher Derive a Prodi. Is it correct? Yeah. He's author of various books and essays, mainly on the topic of the Italian revolutionary operaism. Yeah, thank you for coming. And Alexander Kiselov is a migration researcher and a left-wing publicist. He previously organized with the student union Prima Idea. I am also part of this union, and is today he is affiliated with Соціальний Рух in Ukraine, as well as Syndikalisterna and Vänsterpartiet in Sweden. Alexander worked as an analyst for Право на захист in Slavyansk and is currently a research assistant at Uppsala University. His texts have appeared in Spilne Commons, Solidaritet, L'Anticapitalist, and Jacobin. And I propose to start our discussion with a few guiding questions, namely, like, what does it mean to participate in political and broader social life today? And do current procedures of participation help to build democracy, or do they in some ways make it impossible? So I will give the floor to Gigi. Please Yeah, you could start.
Okay. Maria, if I understand well, I have 10, 15 minutes for my introductive intervention. So, of course, thank you very much, first of all, to invite me in this moment of discussion. I'm going slow, and sorry also for my broken English, Italian broken English. I have read carefully the short presentation of our panel, and I have a doubt. I read the presentation and the questions. What does it mean to participate in political and broader social life today? Do current procedures of participation help to build democracy, or do they in some ways make it impossible? Do we need solidarity for democracy? And if so, what does it mean to be in solidarity today? Uh, this is to say, the problem of our panel is the participation, the forms and the procedures of participation, and I agree on this. But my doubt is the underlying precondition, preconception, if we want, which I believe is implied in the questions you are asking. That is to say, the goodness of democracy, or the democracy as the goal of our political action and political participation. Uh, I think we have to radicalize our discussion, and to critique this precondition, this preconception, and to put in question the democracy itself. I don't saying this or that democracy, or the democracy with adjectives, but the democracy in itself, the democracy sans phrase, to use the suggestion of Marx. Of course, we can restart from the origins of the concept, that is a Western concept, and we see that the democracy in Athens was born with a precise, a clear line of exclusion. The demos, the people, was the Greek citizens, that is to say, not the slave, not the woman, and not the foreign people. Or we can restart from the origins of the modernity, and to see how the democracy was based on the figure of the citizen, the individual citizen. Who is the individual citizen? John Locke answers. The individual citizen is who owns their own person. So the individual citizen is based on the property, on the private property of his own person. That is to say, again, not slave, not poor, not foolish, not woman, because in the Locke, following the Locke point of view, the woman often coincides with hysteria. But I think that the crucial problem, the object of the critique that I'm proposing, has to be the democracy in its full development during the 19th century and the today democracy. the modern democracy, the contemporary democracy. Uh, of course, the democracy is not the only regime of capital system. We know that the capital system flourished in other regime, the dictatorial regime, in monarchy regime, in fascist regime. But I think that democracy is the ideal uh, political regime of capital system, because democracy is based on the homo economicus, following the Adam Smith concept. And we know that Adam Smith was not only an economist, a political economist, but before to be a political economist was a moralist, was an anthropologist. And the Homo economicus is the specific man produced by the capital system. Because the capital is not at all, not only an economic regime, but capital is first of all a system of anthropological production, is a system of production of subjectivity. In this context, in this framework, the democracy reduce the individuals to homo economicus, reduce the individuals to abstract individual, to mass individual. And the mass individual is one among other ones. You count the mass individual in the votes in the election. The election are the political systems of Homo economicus. So in this way, the individuals have not material conditions. They are deprived of individual condition. They can enter in the democratic system in the measure that they are deprived of material conditions. They are not proletarians or bourgeois. They are not men and women. They are not black or white. They are mass individual in competition with other mass individual. The problem of the full developed democracy is not exclusion. We said before that in Athens, but also at the origins of the modernity, the problem was the exclusion of slaves, the exclusion of foreign people, the exclusion of women, the exclusion of foolish. I think that nowadays the problem is exactly the contrary. The problem is the inclusion. The problem is that the contemporary capital is an extraordinary and diabolic system of inclusion. And inclusion means production of capitalist subjectivity. In this machine of inclusion, you are free. In some way, you are free. You are free to say everything you want, because everything you say has not material possibility to change the system, to change the machine, to jam, to break the machine. Therefore, the democracy is a great form of neutralization, of pacification of contradiction, is an extraordinary machine of depoliticization. On this base, I wanted to retake your original question of participation, and that I agree with this, and to say that in the regime of democratic neutralization, of democratic depoliticization, the participation is separated by its roots, etymological roots. The etymological roots of participation is to take part, to take a collective part. And the part means a part against another part, material part against another material part. Other, on the contrary, participation without take part in the democracy means the abstract figure of the people, a people composed by mass individual. Uh, of course, the digital era, as you say in your presentation, is the supreme stage of this process, because we are all included in our bubbles, contemplating our limitless freedom of opinion, but in the measure that our opinion has not the possibility, the power to be effective. But before this, before the problem of the digital era, the problem is that the opinion is the perfect form of democracy. That is to say, the weak and powerless freedom of mass individual. So, to conclude, I think that a great mistake is to leave the critique of democracy to the right and to the reactionary. Of course, this doesn't mean then on the tactical point of view, we have also to defend space of liberal democracy. Of course, it's obvious this. And I know also, and maybe in the discussion we can retake this argument, that this defense of the democracy, this cult of the democracy, is rooted in the history of the 20th century, in the totalitarian system, the critique of the totalitarian system. But I think that if we want to reimagine a radical politics, we have to imagine a new critique of the democracy itself. Thanks.
Oh, thank you very much, Gigi. Now I will ask Alexander to continue in some sense.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. I didn't really try to radicalize it. I was just taking it as an opportunity to reflect on the questions we were sent, and I'll just try to share my reflections, looking forward to a discussion. Talking about political participation today or yesterday or even tomorrow, for me, first of all, it means actually being able to organize collectively to influence something. And this is more than a spontaneous mobilization, but a persistent pattern of organizing, carrying out the successful patterns through time, and being able to build resilient structures that can withstand difficult times as well. Coming from Ukraine, and as many of the people here, I think, are familiar, that countless examples of self-organization in response to something in Ukraine, whether it was in 2014 or in 2022, where people who never knew each other just got together and started to interact. But the thing is, very often those interactions they lack institutional memory, and quite often people just repeat same and same mistakes, and basically often waste time by learning from the scratch or duplicating efforts. And another structural weakness that this spontaneous response does not always continue over time, again, to make sure that the initial goals are fulfilled in the long term. And the answer is not to this, not neither professional NGOs, because what we've seen when the war started is that a lot of them they were overwhelmed as well. They had to relocate the offices, they had to hire staff. So whatever they knew before wasn't actually being able to put in practice. What was quite helpful, though, at least in terms of coordinating efforts and exchanging information, was actually existing trade unions which are present in every region in Ukraine. And however weak they might be in Ukraine, that was an example of something that, of the structure that can mobilize and withstand shock. But talking about the digitalization and other challenges of nowadays, and we can basically see that a lot of forms of participation that we are offered, they are quite often reduced to individual forms of expressing personal opinions. Could be in social media, could be through petitions and trying to spread these petitions again in social medias. And you can argue for something. Of course, you can even reach many people, but the effect is quite limited on the power holders. And that's what we can see now with the right wing slash back. So before, when the establishment was more or less agreeing to play by the rules, you can try to advocate for your policies. But once they openly refuse, you have nothing to counter with because they control institution, they control organized violence institution, they have financial resources, and you only have social medias, which they can also basically block. And then it takes a whole set of efforts to translate it into something else. You can go on the streets, but having no experience of this organizing, you might also fail quite easily. So this is the limitation for me. And yeah, so what we look as the main challenge for today and these procedures, what we've seen for a while was the effects of marketization of politics, where it comes quite often about basically managing preferences or legitimizing some sort of policies through polling, through invited consultants, through building personal brands, and not really collective decision making in many ways. Because, and this is problematic because when you just show some policy package, counting for many different opinions, it is not what people agree on immediately, or I mean, there was no discussion, deliberation that allowed people to own this, which makes whatever it is quite weak. So either the politicians' environment changes, they can do something else, or and you cannot really exercise pressure because there is no organized power behind you. Or the same thing as the politician can be sabotaged by the establishment, and then it could be easy to lose popularity and step back from this policy, which is a great problem, I think, for us in a democratic society. And with current time, within the age of algorithms, which we all follow through the social media, they also basically have one goal of maximizing attention and interaction, prioritizing kind of viral, extreme, simplified messaging. And when you don't see even your opinion being represented there or answered to, so you either get hooked up with whatever reaches you, or you can quite often stay completely withdrawn, skeptical, demoralized. And what could be the antidote? That's perhaps quite hard to tell, course, one thing could be changing the algorithms. That's what I recently learned, that even TikTok for us and TikTok in China, where it's produced, there are two different versions, and they use completely different algorithms. The one that they use in China actually prioritizing educational content that promotes kind of deliberation in a way. I mean, of course, it's depoliticized, but we don't probably have this power here right now. So the option could be not even try to overcompete these algorithms or digital form of participation, but perhaps trying to look at co-creating some counter environments, some face-to-face spaces where we can share belonging, share efforts to do something together and hopefully win. Uh, I can give you two examples. One of the from Syndikalisten organizing in Sweden. When you are a migrant worker in a foreign country, there is this inherent power dynamics, making it more like a clientelist interaction when you come to the local trade union. And what syndicalists try to do, they because they have a completely different approach of where people actually should use the union to pursue their interests, but not just pay membership fees to the union to have their interests served. They're trying to offer as many possible ways for people to actually partake in their cases. That could be preaching to the media to express their story. So it is in the public space, it can influence. They can help and participate in the cases of each other. They can also have this space where they can speak the same language together with local people. They can go for blockades. They can even just simply bring food and share with us. So all together through consultations, through participation, they see that even if there are small efforts, but they matter. And if they win, this win becomes a collective victory, which actually gives people hope. And another example is probably looking at how political parties try to re-engage with the membership or even voters base, particularly the left parties. Well, in Sweden, I think also in other European ones, so there are examples of the phone banking or basically calling and trying to talk to their members rather than just taking them for granted. And like in some countries, I think there's different structure. In Sweden, majority of the party members, they're quite passive. They don't attend the meetings, so they just subscribe to the news. So it's one of the ways to actually get involved, to listen, to find the ways what you didn't expect to involve people. But the other one is talking to the voters actually, without even trying to agitate, trying to push some ideas, but basically going from door to door and listening. You just ask questions, you listen, you make notes, then you share, and whatever you offer, people might recognize because first you talked to them. You kind of invited them to participate in this. Another thing that is not always obvious, it's paying attention to actually who can afford to participate. When we see the situation in Ukraine, a lot of people they have not so much free time anymore. Even before it was challenging, but now a lot of people they are already in the army, they are mobilized, or maybe they don't want to be mobilized, so they won't really go much outside on the streets, or maybe their friends or family are in the army, so that's their main attention where, or even with the constant bombings or the air raids for blackouts, people simply spend more time on the duties at home for like social reproduction. Some people they had to be displaced and start to build their life from the very beginning. So there is no actually much space or time for them to engage in something that can look very abstract if you're talking about political strategies in the long run when they just want to survive. So trying to look perhaps for some flexible forms for support for special procedures allowing to use the time probably more effectively so everyone can be involved. And there was the last question that wasn't said here, but was in our letters. That's about solidarity. And what I think is important for us to understand that solidarity is not one-sided. It's not charity. It's not a way out for somebody's guilty conscience to feel better. But it's neither something that you can just demand from other people and take for granted. For me, solidarity is based on equal exchange, on recognizing, identifying these shared interests, where you can together co-create these institutions for protection of this mutual interest and for their advancement. So where we are participating together equally and in our dignity. The problem is when we are more atomized, isolated, and in today's climate of insecurity, we are weak as individuals. We are easy to scare, we are easy to manipulate, and we're basically quite often bound to choose least worst option, which is not a way out for us. So what we should be looking for and probably trying to even find the ways or exchange ideas about how to build this solidarity and communities that can practice collective power. Perhaps one of the most important places work where we spend most of our time, but also where we live. There are plenty of options how to organize where you live, from the tenants union to co-owners unions, but also through managing leisure time and education, where we all participate. In the right examples from Scandinavian countries, perhaps from other European countries, how people could do this. And maybe that's where we could start to look. Yeah, that's my first contribution. Thank you.
Yeah, Alexander, thank you very much. First of all, I want to ask you said about like personal opinions a lot, that we have like opinions and how they became actually like collective one, and we often speak that political parties should persuade someone, and it's really important part of agitating work. The first question is is it really possible to turn personal opinion to some collective action? And the second part of the question is for Gigi. Do you think that this concept of personal opinion, which we use now actually extensively, especially in digital, like in Facebook is actually this personal opinion festival where you could put like or dislike if this opinion is somehow yours or not. Could we speak about personal opinion in terms of material condition, which you mentioned during your presentation?
Shall I go first then, or?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think it is possible to turn individual opinions into collective actions, and it's basically the only way to make sure that these opinions matter. It's not always straightforward when you don't have this practice, but the first, I mean, for me, it is not even also as an example of collective decision making when you go phone banking or you go to knock on doors, but this is the way to involve people on board. So they express their opinions and you aggregate them. They become co-creators of this, and it's the way of them to own the opinion. But of course, for me, it matters more because it is something that can be more inspiring for people. The one step for them to actually believe that something matters. And the second step, of course, is to making sure that this translates into something. It requires some structures, not mobilization, because that doesn't last long and it's probably too much efforts, but finding the ways how we can own this agenda, translate it and modify. I think it is possible. And there are examples of this was historically and now as well.
Thank you, Gigi.
Okay, thanks, Maria, for the question. Of course, I wanted to to be clear on this point, I'm not describing the social network or the digital tools as a system of totalitarian alienation. This is not at all my point, because I'm very critic about every imagine of totalitarianism, and maybe this could be an object of discussion. Of course, therefore, you can strive against the forms of alienation, of individualization. You know that there are a lot of movements in the last 15, 20 years that use the social networks as a form of communication and a form of organization. For example, you can think of the Arab Springs in Tunisia, in Egypt. We know that in the acampadas in Spain, or the Occupy movement in US, or the mobilization in 2013 in Brazil, or the mobilization in Istanbul, in Gezi Park, and so on and so on. And we can arrive also to the recent mobilization for Palestine in Italy and other parts of the world. And from Facebook to Instagram are important tools of communication, of participation, and also of mobilization. The problem is that I think that the opinion is always individual. You have to break with the individual opinion and to transform the opinion in the decision, in collective decision. I think there is a very difference between opinion and the decision. I think that opinion is the real form of participation in the democratic system, because you express a way of thinking only in a weak sense. Not in a collective sense, because the decision is separated by the opinion. On the contrary, the decision is always a take part, a take in a collective part, a possibility not only to express what you are thinking of, but is a way to change, to act on the context. On this way, I think that there is a matter of freedom. In the democracy, the matter of freedom is only a question of rights. You have the freedom of speak, but you speak and nothing change. You have the freedom to participate, but you participate and nothing change. You have the freedom to vote, but you vote and nothing change. The problem is how to have to imagine the freedom as a practice, as not as a right. A free practice is a practice that can change the situation.
Oh, thank you very much, DJ. Yeah, we have our last participant, Irina. Thank you that you're coming. So we are starting. We started actually like question part, but I believe that we need to to give you opportunity to present like 10, 15 minutes of your thesis if you want. And we will be really happy. And also, I need to introduce you for everyone. This is Irina Karamarkovic. Yeah. Artist, author, activist, researcher, and also project director for Syrian Society for Cultural Politics, chairwoman of the Migrant Advisory Council of the City of Graz, and chairwoman of Women's Action Forum. So, Irina, floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry that I'm late, but I guess that we had a misunderstanding regarding the time zones. So I thought we are starting at 5 p.m. So anyway, very glad to see you. I don't have an idea about what did you talk about. So what I can do for you tonight during these couple of minutes is to make a short report on the state of the matters in Austria because we are dealing with that within Migrants of Graz, and we're connected with different European countries working on the same matter. So if you would like me to specify certain things, and if you would like me to concentrate on something in particular, please let me know now before I start random.
No, just start.
Okay, so tonight in the city of Graz, which has the first communist government, partly communist government in the history of Austria. It is not like in France or in Italy that we have a long history of communist communal governments. And this is what we have now. We have red, and green. And we have one of the most restrictive laws on getting a citizenship in the whole world, like only United Arabian Emirates and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and maybe Switzerland have something comparable to that. And we have a huge democracy deficit because like 1/5 of the people living in Austria, residing, working, paying taxes, are not allowed to vote. So just caught your recent sentence that it does not even matter if you can vote. For us, the Migrant Advisory Council of the City of Graz, we are advising the city, our municipality, which needs do these communities have, and we are kind of like translators between the communities and between different communities from all around the world living in Graz, and between the government and administration of the city. And also, we are working on one EU project now. We used to have three together with other European countries, EU countries. One was called Accessing Services, Sharing Approaches and Practices. And the second one was called Migrant Voices Heard. And this one, which we prolonged, is called Empowering Migrant Voices on Integration and Inclusion Policies. So if you are residing in Austria, you don't have a right to vote on the communal level. In different European countries, it is it depends from the legislative, it depends from their laws. For example, in Slovenia, you can. In some other countries, you cannot. So we've been trying to raise this level of awareness for the threats to our democracy, and one of these huge threats is having more and more people not being allowed to vote, not being able to vote, not being able to choose their future, and just not having a voice at all, which is a huge problem from my perspective. As far as the Women's Action Forum is concerned, this is where we are focusing on the feminist development policies, and yeah, of course, yeah. So that will be a short notice from me. And if you have some questions, please just go on immediately, because I'm not sure where shall I start with our work. We are trying to act locally. And to not to fight Don Quixote fights, but just to try to have an influence and to and a lobby even. I know this is not a very beautiful word, but in order to bring these really important things forward for us.
Okay, like I have question. Also, Alexandra and Gigi, if you have question, you also could ask. It's okay, but it's really kind of like shocking information that a lot of people in Graz do not have right to vote. And I want to ask, do you see like any other practices of engaging these people in political life, a part of electoral process, actually?
Yes, well, this is it. A Migrants Advisory Council of the City of Graz is within European Union the best practice example regarding that. So if you cannot vote, so you kind of stick together. You try to strengthen the communities, different people who are not able to vote. You try to reach them through their organizations and associations. You try to, like, for example, this is how we do it. It is very difficult for us to reach everybody, yeah, in the city because of the data protection laws. I cannot just knock and ask randomly, "Are you coming from North Africa?" or whatever. So what we do is, for example, we are visiting different communities. Like today, I went to the House of Prayer Mission African Church in order to tell them, yeah, how about the possibilities to vote for the Migrants Advisory Council. So the situation in Graz is like this. We have 303,000 people living in Graz, and we have around 15% of them are having EU passports, and another 15% are third country nationals. So it is approximately 30% of all people living in Austria, in the city of Graz. They don't have an Austrian citizenship. EU nationals, they can vote on the level of a municipality, and the rest of the people, which is now I got the actual statistics, it's like around almost 40,000 people are liable to vote, and so they cannot vote normally, so they are allowed to vote for the Migrants Advisory Council, which is the only council in Graz that you can vote for. These are really democratic elections done at the same time as the municipality elections. So, like, the people have different lists. Like, you have Yugoslavian list, you have Ukrainian list, you have you have African list, and so on and so on. And from these lists, which are comparable to, not really comparable to political parties, but to interests of these communities, the people can vote for them at the same time as the municipality is being voted for, municipality government. So this is how it functions. and now it's about two questions: how to raise awareness for voting at all, and on the other side, we don't have real political power because it still depends from the government if they are going to listen to us. I cannot take a shotgun and make them listen to our recommendations. With this government, we have extremely good relations, and they are really they want to hear. But the most of the problems that we deal with, you cannot really solve them on the level of the municipality, which is like nostrifications of diplomas and education that you did get in some other country than Austria, which is this citizenship law that I just was speaking about, and so on, and a whole lot of racism and discrimination. So now recently we have a Syrian government, like a blue and black government, which I find really, really difficult because it's a far right government. So they excluded all these people living in Styria from an access to a certain help for financial help for heating, like. And so now we are working, for example, on this to try out to find out legal means to fight it. So basically, how I see it, Justitia should get some more speed as far as this is concerned, because we are confronting many problems which are of legislative nature. Are they allowed to discriminate? Yeah. And then who is going to stop them if we cannot vote, for example? And who is going to know about it? Because it is also, if it doesn't affect you, like if you don't need, if you don't have a period, you don't need a tampon. If you don't sit in a wheelchair, you don't need a ramp or something to help you with your disability. So, and if you have a right to vote, you don't think of others not having this right to vote. So, you just, don't think about it. It's not a primary matter of your concern. I'm talking about general knowledge and general interest, and what we deal a lot with is hate speech and a very terrible political and media language, which is really becoming unbearable. So these are some points that I would particularly like to accent, like regarding the times and the place we're living in. And yeah, I hope I did manage to
Yeah.
answer your question.
Yeah, thank you. Rina just mentioned that we need to like to bring this awareness about engagement for election. Yeah, that, and like actually I recall that we have quite not really big level of participation even in this, like in election process, like some in Europe, in some countries like 40%, 50, it's not even a half in some cases. And like in Gigi's presentation, he proposed to radicalize a bit our discussion about democracy, and actually this idea that that person who are part of this democracy infrastructure and electoral process procedure, like as part of this, became a mass individual. So my question is a little bit, I don't know, maybe provocative, but is it possible that people don't want to participate in election procedure and in other form of democracy procedure, which proposed by legislation, for example? They just feel themselves kind of idiots, like because they do not want to be mass individuals. And in this case, it's really interesting what is motivation to participate in election for people who actually participate. If we look at this like from this point of view. Like, and it's really interesting also in the sense of Graz community, because if we have this situation that 30% of people who lived not have the right to vote, and it's really difficult to manage like that we are not sure if they will have it in future actually, because it's really difficult to change this law. So maybe it's possible to consider like kind of something which in Q&A session in proposes like alternative system to the democracy. So could we speak a little bit about this? Maybe too chaotic, but still.
I'm not sure if you're asking me or you're just dropping the question.
Just dropping question if someone want to address it.
So we are an alternative to this not being able to vote. But it's, pardon my French, it's a very shitty alternative because you cannot vote. And this is, the best thing it would be so that we don't exist at all and that we don't need to do all this work so that everybody who live here for a certain amount of time and are liable to vote. And why people don't vote? Because it's the same everywhere. They lost faith in change. They lost faith in their politics, which stopped communicating very important societal changes to them, or did not communicate them clearly, or reduced itself on symbol politics and so on and so on. So, which means we have a crisis of democracy everywhere. But I find, as far as I'm concerned, we need to fight for it every single day. And also from a position of somebody who comes from Kosovo, lived through 4 wars. It is very important that we communicate to all the people that things are not falling from the skies and are for granted, but also the right to vote, the right to participate, the right to vote as a woman, for example, so that this is a fight, a daily fight, defending democracy, redefining democracy, perfecting the laws which are not functioning, going together with the time, or being ahead of time. This is a huge job. So I don't know what would be really an adequate alternative, rather than fight for being heard and being treated as an equal part of society, having right to be an equal part of society.
Okay, if Irina, do you conclude?
Oh, yes. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
thanks. Okay.
Okay, stop.
Okay, thanks. I would like a very short way to answer to very, very interesting and very, very important Maria's question in three very short points. The first point I wanted to clarify that in my critique of democracy doesn't mean the ideological refusal to participate to democratic election on the democratic tools, because I think that the ideological refusal and the ideology in general is always in individual answer, is always a sort of individual dimension. I think that there is a tactical question, a tactical problem, and a strategic problem. On the strategic point of view, I think that we have to reimagine a new radical politics, because the radical politics nowadays and the radical politics of our various traditions are more or less defeated. And so we have to imagine new forms of radical politics. And on this strategic point of view, I think, yes, we have to criticize the democracy. On the tactical point of view, and Irina say this, and I agree, there are spaces of democracy that not only we can, but we have to use. First. Second, I don't agree that the crisis of electoral participation is the end of democracy, or is the crisis of democracy, because I think that the crisis of electoral participation is the consequence of democratic neutralization, and in a way is the perfect way of democratic realization. I remember some years ago, when the Democratic Party in Italy was in the government, there was a participation in my region, Emilia-Romagna, that is a traditional region of Communist Party before and Democratic Party nowadays, in which there was a participation around 40% of the electors. And the former leader of the Democratic Party said, it's not this a problem. The important thing is to have a vote more than our adversary. And so in this way, I think that the crisis of participation doesn't coincide with the crisis of democracy. We are maybe, of course, we are seeing a process of verticalization of democracy, a process of a democracy that become more and more authoritarian. Yes, it's true. I think that democracy is real, and the ideology of democracy is really a totalitarian system. There is a democratic totalitarianism that we have to analyze. But this is I don't think this is fascism. I think this is democracy. There are fascist activities. There are in Italy we see a lot of this. There are fascist people in the government. There are fascist actions, but also these fascist action, they are expressed in a democratic way. The third point that is maybe the most important in the very question about the point posed by Maria. I don't think that the people who doesn't participate to the election are a sort of is in itself a form, another form of a participation. In the most cases, they are a form of not of refusal, not a aware refuse, but they are a form of alienation about the democratic system. Why I have to vote if my condition doesn't change? but this form of I don't know of disillusion is not in an automatic way. There is not the automatic way in which this form of disillusion becomes a form of new participation. But we have, without illusions, we have to ask to ourselves in which way, in which condition, this form of not participation to the democratic system can become a new forms of participation. This, I think, is a very, very important point. So, to act, of course, in the democratic system, in some spaces of democratic system, as Irina said, and at the same time to imagine new forms of participation beyond the democracy as a form of neutralization.
All right, and I'll try to add a bit to what has been said. First of all, I think it's obviously matters whether one has the right to vote or not. Because if you don't, then no one even tries to speak to you, even hypothetically. But in the country where I live, in Sweden, non-EU citizens they can vote in local and regional elections after 3 years of being registered, but that's probably better than Austria and some other countries. But the thing is, it's not that much in essence, because not even so many local people vote as has been said. So people feel alienated from the politics because, I mean, there are many reasons. Part of it is professionalization of the politics. It's becoming about some small procedures, small details managed by bureaucrats. So there is no passion, there is no inspiration for you to actually go outside and act. But another, probably not smaller reasons, is that it brings no change. That the problem of democratic deficit that has been addressed earlier, including this symbol politics, which just doesn't really bring any meaningful change in my life. And the question that we also should answer, how much different from those digital petitions or likes or shares is actually going once in 4 years and voting? How much actually it can achieve for you as a citizen? What we can look at, especially as migrant workers, probably on some ways to act to meaningful in our immediate environment. So all these practices, all these democratic procedures, they are recognizable and translatable in our everyday life. And even if we are looking at the sources of power, there are so many ways that we can do, starting from structural power, where like a lot of daily services, they are managed by migrant workers. Even if you don't have right to vote in the political elections, you have the right to workplace democracy, and you can do a strike. You can go out on the streets in big numbers, making yourself visible, making yourself heard. And even indirectly in this way, you can affect the institutional framework. And by talking to people, to your neighbors, to your friends, to, I don't know, clients at work, you can also influence how the society is talking about this. But this is something that you do not delegate to somebody to do once in a year for you. This is something that you do and you become an actor in this. And yeah, that's the alternative I can think about.
Alexandra, when you speak about like just go and talk with your friends and family, what exactly and how exactly, like about what you need to talk with people around you?
I'm being general now, but I think it depends on what is most relevant in your context. If you're a migrant worker and you're limited, probably you live in some cheap accommodation with other migrant workers, you work also probably not the best job. So you are isolated from the society, and the society doesn't know much about you, just maybe some small function, and it's easy to Because like one of the ways to do in politics is to create an image of the enemy. And if you don't have any reference, it's easy to be scared because that becomes an answer, like a channeling our frustration with a lot of the failures of the politics now into some enemy. And if you're as a migrant worker or as a woman or some other person, you go and talk proactively about, I mean, what is bothering you? Because maybe in essence you have similar problems with these people, or like your relatives, your friends, your customers. By having some common understanding together, you can spread this knowledge. This like part of this societal power, ideational power. It's like one of the small bricks in how we can build collective power together.
So actually, like these steps to how to say it, to share the common problems, the common I don't know triggering issue is uh, like unavoidable step for any participation from your point. Yeah, because like it's not counter argument, but kind of that like social media, they work so well in this sense that like you have so many information and like regarding obviously algorithm are really have really big impact what you see, but even your I don't know ideal left person with really good I don't know like ideas in your mind, but your social media this like news news line could look like a lot of different problems, so you couldn't actually make some like make some sense from this, find this I don't know this like commons ideas like because yeah we speak about the voices which we need to share, and actually like our journal like we do quite a lot about this. We really try to gather some experience, but what bothered me that sometimes I feel that even this doesn't work anymore, because these like new voices or like old voices, they became part of some field where there is no a lot of sense about this, like just one new experience from some marginalized group, and it could be like empathy, your reaction, maybe some support, but I not feel that it's really possible to create the sense of solidarity through this paradigm. Like, what do you think about this?
I mean, okay, I can start just since I was the last. I'm not talking too much about social media. That's would be part of the same problem and how the algorithms are structured, but more about how you do it face to face in real life to your workers as well. Because in the social media, you have this individualized universe formed by the algorithms, and you live in your own world. In the real life, you're all people you interact with, and you can share these opinions. I mean, I had this many interactions like this, just listening to what bothers people. You try to connect, find what you have in common. I talked to the Swedish construction workers in a bar in Göteborg, and you listen to them, and you think like in the normal world they should probably be voting the left, and but in how the political messaging is framed, probably they might have been voting the right wing, even though they have no any kind of fascist ideas or anything. But they talk about the problems that no one else addresses by the right wing. But like the right wing, they do it in their own way, of course. I talked to soldiers. We had also was in Göteborg in the conference, and we met two Swedish soldiers, and you interact with them, you exchange opinions, and you learn it not from the because also it's like having these spaces where different people can exchange opinions, not this social media bubbles.
Maria, can I add a thing? Because you are right that of course the social media allow participation to a lot of information, but this this multiplication of information and the availability of a lot of information can become a problem. Because there is a sort of inflation of information, because without the capacity of selection of the information, without the capacity of selection of the knowledge, and the availability of the information without the capacity to select the knowledge becomes a problem. A lot of forms of contemporary panic depends on this. You are in front of the screen, you see a lot of information, and the reaction is a panical reaction, because you see a lot of things, but you are not able to select what you are seeing, and so there is a form of block on this way. So I think that we need also to develop not so much the circulation of information, but to develop first of all the ability to select the information, the ability to transform the information in alternative knowledge. This is the real problem on my point of view. Second question, I see also a question before. No, I don't. I don't find, but which alternative system to the democracy you can imagine? Of course, I no, as Marx said, I think that we are not we are not cooking the recipe for the future for the future. I think that there is not the problem to imagine an normative system alternative to democracy, but I think that we have also to start to build up institution within this institution. We can participate within and against the democratic institution, and this is okay if this is useful, if you have the force to participate, it's okay. But we have also to imagine our forms of participation as a form of participation to new forms of institution. Your journal is commons journal, you forms of institution of the common, autonomous institution, because the risk of the mobilization is that the mobilization is ephemeral. You see a great participation, mainly, for example, we are seeing this in the mobilization in solidarity with Palestine in Italy. During September and October, we saw really a mass participation of young people, of students of the school, students of the university. This participation was for 2 or 3 weeks, between the end of September and the beginning, the first half of October. Then, after the peace of Trump, this mobilization disappeared. Because the new forms of the new forms of mobilization depends also on the temporality of the media system, the emotional temporality of the media system. When the Palestine is at the center of the media system, that means the TV, the journals, the social network communication, you have a great participation. When this disappears, this doesn't mean that disappears the people who are dying in Palestine, but disappear the emotional reaction. If you don't see the people who are dying, these people as doesn't die. And so I think that this very, very mass form of participation produce subjectivity, produce a form of subjectivity. We have to understand which kind of form of subjectivity this mobilization produce, but we have also to build up new forms of institution, because without this form of these forms of institution, autonomous institution, institution of the common, the mobilization is really risk to be really ephemeral.
I was thinking I would love to address, I would love to ask something actually. So, how many of you cannot vote? Okay, you said you can vote in Sweden, right? If you're living in Sweden.
Local and regional elections.
Okay. And you can vote in Italy, I guess. And you, Maria, you can also
Like,
vote.
yes, but now because of wartime, actually not
Yeah.
really.
Okay, so I don't know how many of the people are listening and to us and watching us, but let's just change this perspective. So we are talking about alternatives to democracy, while some people have no right of participation at all. So I am living in Austria almost 30 years and I cannot vote. So which means, and it's not only that I cannot vote, yeah, it's also that I cannot organize a protest. It is not legally possible for me. It is also not legally possible to be kind of like order officer on an organized protest. And if I do something which is not legal, it has a direct influence on prolongation of my residency permit, which also affects many artists. For example, if for example, if you in Italy want to take your clothes off and do a Pussy Riot action, maybe you are going to probably go to jail for a little bit, but then you are going to stay, in the country. But me, probably they are going to throw out. Yeah? So this is really, when we're talking about democracy, when we're talking about different alternatives, when we're talking about these matters at all, um, we um, we need to keep everybody in mind that different parts of our society have different needs at this point. And this is what I was trying to specify. This is why I am here tonight, I guess, because I see, as you said, I see crisis of participation for the people not going to vote or not wanting to vote anymore. But it's also a democracy crisis, this crisis of participation, because when fifth, 1/5 of the people residing in Austria can't vote, what's going to happen in 20 years? Who is going to vote at all? Yeah. So as a practical person that I like to think I am, we've been trying to concentrate on studying these participation procedures and legislatives in different European countries. So we have like uh, Austria, Slovenia, Italy, Luxembourg, and Croatia and so on and so on on a broader level to find out best practice examples in different parts of it. So it's very complicated because we have EU laws and we also have very different legislatives depending from the country who can do what. Yeah. And it's very hard also to communicate that. As I said, so if you have a right to vote, you can decide if you are going to vote or not. But if you cannot decide at all, I mean, you don't you have a political power of a circus president, yeah. So what's left as an alternative? Probably the next revolution and the next system, which is going to raise after it. And I'm making jokes because I don't know if I'm going to live to see it, but. But at first, now we fight to have an access to what is, rather than having an abstract idea in mind at this point, at least for me, out of my perspective, as not being able to move. It's like playing chess, a chess game, and not being able to move at all in the society.
Yeah, I really like how Irina put us to the ground. Like when we speak about alternatives for democracy, we even like don't fulfill democracy for now, actually. But I want ask one more question about like this idea about exchange of opinions. I found it like I really like the comment of Alexander that in Sweden people also exchange opinions in public sauna. I also believe in this power of so-called like third places, like where you could really speak with people. But what I found and want I test with you that like these models of exchanging opinions is also quite problematic because like if you have different opinions with people, you could argue, like you will have fight. If you have the same opinions, like there is nothing to speak about actually. Like, okay, I have the same one. What I found in my, for example, activist practice is that more powerful looks exchange of practices, like of routine, of like sharing this knowledge about yourself and like through telling about your practices, showing more like it's not about identity or etc. because all our individuals practice it's actually social practice, and now we have a lot of information, and as G just said, it's really difficult to find like not relevant but knowledge in this information, if I could like say like this. But when people exchange their own practices with each other, it's create like could it create some social bonds and maybe some fundament. I hope it's exists in English for collective action and maybe for institution like alternative institution about which spoke Gigi. You need to choose who want to answer this question or commenter.
Can you probably give an example of what do you mean by exchange of practices?
Yeah, it's like when you actually speak about your practices, not put it like in opinion. For example, telling, okay, I think the problem of university is, and then have this big or short list of problems. But when you speak, okay, when I prepare to seminars, I do like, or when I'm on seminars, I do this and this. And then you started kind of create something maybe because as like when you started to list a problem just from your mind, sometimes often it's like really basic, not interesting stuff. It's just like, okay, yeah, it's a problem. It's a really big problem. IE is big problem for university. Okay, but what then?
Man, I think it's not that much different from exchanging opinions because you can also talk about the ways how your successes or failures. So that's quite an easy way for me to imagine this. But I mean, what I was so much talking probably about this exchanging opinions or problems could be as well as solution is just that you build common grounds with people. And like that's why I also put so much emphasis on the workplace because if you're talking about migrant workers, that's probably the only big area of their life that all of them usually work and work often too much. They don't have even maybe desire to engage somewhere otherwise or even energy. But then you have co-workers, of course. You have unions, you have some other organizations that can help you. And then you talk and you exchange opinion, you exchange practices, you build this common grounds, common understanding. You see each other as like human beings and their dignity. And everything else just kind of builds up on this. Because in the union I'm involved is there is like almost like a, they call it like radical equality. They don't ask about people's religion. They don't ask about their sexual orientation, about their ethnicity, their migration status as well. They could be without people without documents at all. They're talking about their work and their rights at work. And everything else, I mean, they can change, but they can also stay live at home. But then you see that probably like a person who is handling your case. Maybe it's a I don't know, trans person or I don't know, a guy who went to the blockade at your workplace. They're Muslims and you're not. But that doesn't matter in this case. So they are different, but you're all equal in a way. And also, if you see that I don't know there is some kind of hate attacks on Muslims, for them they're not some abstract Muslims. They are your colleagues at work. So why they should bear this? And yeah, you build these ideas, you build practice, and you exchange, and that's it's but I mean, like for me, I think it's very important that people have experience of winning something because if you're demoralized, you can only talk about problems. You can only talk, just can exchange opinions of how everything is. But if you have at least a small hope that change is possible, then of course it builds up on this. And if you're probably in a more better situation as a native citizen of this country, like best stake at actually doing something is giving people this hope. So even if like maybe it's not the most effective, but try to make sure people are on board. So their little efforts matter because that's how they gain this self-confidence. That's how they gain this belief.
I sorry that um, I think this is another, of course, important question. Uh, mm, I think that mm, mm, we are very, I don't know, we are very full of opinion and spaces, virtual and real spaces, or concrete spaces, physical spaces, in which the people exchange their opinion. We are very, very full of these. If I go around the streets, in the bars, and so on, there are a lot of opinions. Everyone has the opinion. There is a sort of the task to have an opinion. So the people has opinions on everything, and this is a problem. This is a great problem because I think the opinion is only an opinion, and it remains in the cage of this democratic participation, powerless democratic participation. You can say everything. You are in a sort of real show, talk show in which you can say everything. If I go around the streets in Italy, in which the situation, as you know, for a long time, there is the salary nowadays in Italy is the same salary of 20 years ago. And at the same time, the prices, the cost of the life is increase, continuously increase. So the situation, the crisis in Italy is really, really effective, is really, really strong. You hear a lot of people that say we cannot go on like this, and you say every time this, but this doesn't mean that you are on the border of forms of conflict, because this opinion we cannot go on like this is the form that avoid the conflict, because I express my opinion and it's okay. I'm I'm okay because I express my opinion. I say my opinion. In the university, we cannot go on like this. But I think that the opinion is no more an opinion when it becomes a mobilization, when it becomes a collective form of action, if it becomes a collective form of organization. A lot of time in the history, but also in the last year, the people, the mobilization don't come from the people excluded by the system, most excluded by the system. A lot of time the mobilization come from the people most included in the system. For example, the students who want to study, I don't know, in Italy, physics, or to study engineering. And the professor say, okay, you have to study hard, you have to study strong, because you can found a very, very, very good job, and you can have a vertical social mobility, and so on. And when these promises are betrayed by the system, here there is a form of mobilization. And so the people who must work for these promises, when these promises are betrayed, become the people who mobilize themselves. So I think that we have to search, we have to make inquiry, to make research, not so much when there is the expression of opinion, but when there is the possibility of the possibility of an expression who go beyond the opinion.
As far as I'm concerned, what we do, I'm going to send you one more link. So we are we're working on capacity building most of the time. So not on exchange of opinions, but really of putting every important person, institution, and every person is important. Everybody, institutions, governmental, on NGOs, and also different migrant communities, and also different civil organizations. What we are trying to do is advocacy, capacity building, raising awareness, and advocacy with local and regional authorities to make strategies and action plans and to proceed like that. Yeah. So what we do is tailoring programs, legal trainings, offering legal trainings based on rights-based approach. Then we're trying to increase capacity and willingness of local and regional authorities to engage people with history of migration, for example, in local inclusion strategies. This is also what we do. We also do trainings for local and regional politicians on participatory methodologies, yeah, and anti-discrimination and so on and so on, and we want to try to strengthen these participation mechanisms and especially as far as e-participation is concerned, we have, for example, in Graz, we developed something which actually happened in Barcelona, which is a digital platform for citizens participation. It's called Graz gemeinsam gestalten, and it works in many, many languages. So we try to operate as inclusive as possible in our circumstances and with our budget, which is not much, particularly at this time. So this is what we can do, like coming out of the sauna or also being in the sauna. I appreciate it, exchanging these opinions, but we also work a lot on putting everybody in the same boat and trying to, translate between the different needs of these different communities and local governments and on the European level as well, make researches which are scientifically soundproof in a way to say, hey, this is how it looks like now. This is how we can make it better together if there's a political will to do so. And if there's not political will, then we do everything in our power for them to feel stupid because they did not want it to do it. So this is approximately how yeah, I know it's a lot of things. I'm going to put a few more links in this chat for you to see. Like, for example, there's our baseline assessment of local integration strategies and migrant participation. Again, I hate the word integration, but this is the best what we have up to now, unfortunately. So we have local municipalities of Graz and Lustenau in Austria. Then we have two municipalities in Croatia, Germany, Greece, Italy, Luxembourg, Slovenia, and so on. And if you have time to read it, it's not boring, I promise. You're invited. You're very welcome. And this is, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So we actually have only 10 minutes. Maybe you have I do not see the questions from our listeners, but maybe you want to I don't know, 2, 3 sentences to conclude our discussion, or you want me to do it? Okay, actually, I have one question from Patrick. We could address it. I will read it now. In your opinion, what lessons or inspiration can the international left learn from the various experiences of self-organization as form of collective social self-determination in Ukraine? More specifically, in terms of a democratic revolutionary of emancipatory process specific the 21st century. I believe that it's this question mainly for Alexander, but if Irina and Gigi want to. Alexander is shocked.
I'm not sure because what examples of inspiration of not giving up, but like in my experience with the left wing in Ukraine, it's more about sharing lessons of what not to do, not to be caught in this situation, but about inspiration. I mean, I don't know, like just look at the people who nonetheless, despite all these circumstances, they just don't give up, I guess. And many of them, they can't travel even outside the country. So for 4 years, they've been stuck in this situation. Some of them, they volunteered or been mobilized to the military, and it's been also many years. And there is, right now, there is not much hope for people of the bright future because nobody knows where it leads to. But the strengths of people even to organizing these conferences. This is something that you can be inspired by, I guess.
Okay, and also we have one more question. Is there a problem when the mobilization happens or massive protest movements? The democratic bureaucratic procedure can co-opt transformative energy into the procedure that can go on for years. Thus, the energy is empty. What can serve as a remedy for this? Uh,
Sorry.
okay,
I,
yeah.
I don't know. One of the three passports I have is Serbian. With I have a Serbian citizenship, so I'm kind of regarding also the inspiration from the former question. Of course, I am tired, and after a year of massive protests, there's still no help, and there's and it's getting worse, and it's close to it's like a war, another one. So, what is the remedy? Just to keep on going on? I don't know often how, and I sometimes don't even know why or what is right thing to do. But I also know that we shouldn't stop with the engagement because it's the only thing left in a way, and kind of try to figure out in this very complex time and very complex places like all around the world how to proceed. I don't know more than that at this point. I'm sorry.
Uh, okay. Any others comment for this question?
I mean, I can only say something boring and traditional. So the movement, the mobilization, yeah, they are short-lived, but they should be, this energy should be channeled into something as a political party, for example, that can influence the decision-making, this situation in the country. There are many problems with the parties, but that's a completely other question, how to make the party politics democratic. Could be also trade union, but like something that keeps this alive and it keeps inspiring people for small wins. I mean, I can't underline how much, even if it's a little bit illusionary, how much it helps. And that's why I was like inspired so much by these experiences of going and talking to people in their apartments because it's not even that you don't get any special insights that you couldn't have imagined, but just the fact that you listened, you talk to people makes them part of what was happening. And if you win, that's part of their win. And that's why we see the successes of the left-wing forces that use this technique. It was experience of with Die Linke in Germany, it was experience of KPO in Austria, and what was happening in New York now. But again, like how you not lose it after the elections, that would be a problem of the party democracy movement.
Okay, so DJ, if you want to add something, you have like 1 minute. If not,
It's okay. Yes, I talk a lot, so I think it's enough like this.
Okay, so we are finished, and I could say officially that our panel is ended, and also our conference is ended. I'm really happy to see you there, and I hope to see your text in our journal this year and next year. Yeah, and maybe we could see each other in the conference next year, which will be hopefully offline in Ukraine. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you very